Good morning, Star of Bethlehem family members and friends. We are glad that you are watching today. Thank you for joining our stream. We're so glad that you took the time out to view our services today. If you haven't already, please take a moment to like our page on Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. You may also want to connect with our church on Twitter and on Instagram. Listen, if there is something said today that you enjoy, that touches your heart, please share this video with your family and your friends. We want to take this time to wish everyone a happy Father's Day. This third Sunday in June has been set aside to celebrate the fathers of this world, and so we want to honor them today. As we look to our announcements, it is with great joy that we are planning our reopening. We're looking to have our first in-person service on Sunday, July 5th. Now, when you come in, things will be a little bit different because of the precautions that we'll need to take in order to keep you safe and to slow down the transmission of the disease. Number one, we need you to know if you don't feel good, stay home. Don't come. Watch it here on Facebook, watch it here on YouTube. Just stay home. Number two, if you come, wear a mask. If you don't have one, we will have some here. But if you have some at home, please bring yours. Number three, you probably won't be able to sit in your normal seat. We'll have some seats blocked off in order to make sure we maintain social distancing. But as you come in, we'll need you to take the first available seat closest to the front of the sanctuary. That way nobody has to walk past each other, no one has to step over anyone. Number four, we won't be walking around for offering. There'll be a receptacle near the door for you to give as you are entering or as you exit. We're asking for your complete cooperation with these and any other guidelines that may come up so that we can all worship but yet reduce the potential to transmit the disease. Now, as normal for summer, our services will begin at 10 a.m. and we will be in our casual dress. Those of you who are not ready to join us in person, you will always be here on Facebook, we'll always be here on YouTube, and you can still continue to join in Sunday school by calling the conference call. Prayer is always important, but especially in times like these. We need to continue to pray for those dealing with the virus, those who are sick, those who have been impacted financially, those nations, including our own, where numbers in areas where sickness is beginning to spike. We want to keep them in prayer. We also want to continue to pray for the progress of our nation on a social level. Times are changing, and it is good right now that people are beginning to see a lot of the racial injustice that has been going on for decades and even centuries. And so we want to continue to pray, we want to continue to press, we want to continue to make sure that we are being heard, that we are being seen, and that our politicians know that we want everyone to be treated fairly. We ask that all Star Bethlehem attenders to continue to be faithful in your giving. You've got options on how to give, whether it's through Givelify, Cash App. You can mail it in, you can schedule a pickup or a drop off. If you're not a member but you're being blessed by this ministry, we ask you to consider giving a donation to encourage us to continue in this way. If you have not yet accepted Jesus Christ, we ask you to stay tuned following the sermon for a brief word on how you can become a part of God's family. And lastly, we have a Father's Day message from retired NBA player Walter Bond. And so we'll have a song, we'll have the message from Walter Bond, we'll have another song, and then we'll have our morning sermon for this week. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Who was there when I first opened up my eyes? when I first learned to ride, and who never missed a game. Celebrate me what a loss. Yes, my father was. Adolescent years had come, who helped me understand. And when the winning point was scored, who in victory raised my hand. And when I hung my head in shame, it was that I lifted up. Yes, my Father was. My heavenly Father has always been there for my earthly one was gone. He's always there for me, and I only want to be just like him. Now that I'm a full-grown man who can wipe my tears away, and who's on the other end when I lift my heart to pray, and who's always by my side to help me make it through. Yes, my Father is. My heavenly Father is. Yes, he is. Yes, my Father. Yes, he is. 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 Can you help me say yes, he is? Yes, he is. 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 My Father, really, yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's always there. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Always there. Yes, he is. 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 Oh, yes, he is. Yes. Oh, yes, he is. Oh, yes, he is. My college career was over. I got offered a job to become a hospital administrator. 2-year program, $75,000 job. And right before I took the job, my daddy called me on the phone. Let me tell you about my daddy. When I was a little boy, my daddy would always pick me up. When he came home from work, he picked me up. When he saw me in the nursery after church, he picked me up. No matter how long he worked, no matter how tired he was, my daddy would always pick me up. So when I had my kids, I would always pick up my kids. When I got home, sometimes I was tired. They have a bottle in one hand, and they just lifted up the other hand, and they knew what daddy was supposed to do. My job was to pick them up. This is a spiritual interaction. When you pick up a child, it is a spiritual transaction. When you pick up a child, you change their perspective. When you pick up a child, all of a sudden they can see the world the way you see it. I don't care what your children have done, there is nothing they can do for you to stop picking them up. Well, my daughter's a drug addict. I don't care, pick her up. My son messes up. I don't care, pick him up. I don't care. You pick them up. That is your job, mama. That is your job, daddy. That is your job, grandma. That is your job, granddad. Your number one job is to pick them up and change their perspective. My saddest day, one day, my daddy looked at me and he said, boy, you too big. I can't pick you up anymore. But when he couldn't pick me up physically, he would pick me up emotionally. He would pick me up spiritually. I had a great dad because he would always pick me up. He would always change my perspective. So my daddy called me on the phone, he asked me a question. He said, son, you had a tough year, what's next? I said, Dad, I'm gonna be a hospital administrator. He said, not bad, but let me ask you a question, son. Do you believe you're an NBA player? You can't outproduce your self-image, son. If you don't think so, go take the job. But if you believe you're an NBA player, go for it. My dad had the self-control and discipline and waited for my answer. And my answer was yes. You're right, Dad. I can't work the rest of my life. But playing in the NBA is a dream I've had ever since I was a little boy. He said, go for it, son. I limped back into my coach's office with a cast on my foot. I said, Coach, what do I need to do to play in the NBA? I asked that question 4 years in a row. With tears in his eyes, he said, son, when I recruited you, I heard you was a mama's boy. But I'm here to tell you, you just like your daddy. But what do I need to do to play in the NBA? He said, do two things you can play in the NBA. Lose 20 pounds and shoot a three-point shot with range, you can play in the NBA. I think you should be a motivational speaker, son, but if you lose 20 pounds and shoot the three-point shot with range, you can play in the NBA. I lost 20 pounds, and every day I would shoot 500 shots a day, every single day. I got invited to training camp with the Dallas Mavericks, and not only did I make the team, I became the first ever undrafted rookie free agent in the history of the Dallas Mavericks to start opening night. Could you imagine what was going through my mind? I had not started a basketball game since high school. I got to the arena and they dimmed the lights and they put the spotlight right on me. Right through the spotlight, I saw my mom, my dad, and all my brothers and sisters. They surprised me at the game. Then I saw my dad. And I just pumped my fist. And he pumped his fist. And tears streamed down my face. Thank you for all those timeouts. Thank you for making sure I was always home when the streetlights came on. Thank you for making sure I could always hear your voice. Thank you for always changing my perspective. I know what it feels like to sit on a bench. I know what it feels like to get knocked down. I know what it feels like to have a hope and a dream, and nobody believes in it but a few people. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. Go for your dreams. Don't live life with regrets. I could always hear my daddy's voice. You have children, you have grandchildren. Can your children and grandchildren hear your voice? I could always hear my daddy's voice. He would say, go out, have a good time, play with your friends, but don't let the street lights beat you home. When I started my motivational speaking business, I called my daddy and said, Daddy, I'm gonna be a motivational speaker. He said, son, you think you can be successful at it? I said, yes, sir. You think you can make a lot of money at it? I said, yes, sir. He says, go for it. That's all my daddy said to me was go for it. So when I think about life, when I think about my goals, one thing he did for me as a father is to make sure I was always where I was supposed to be. he would have me write my goals down, and he would check in periodically, basically asking me, Walter, where are you supposed to be? Fathers, do you realize how powerful that is? If you ask that question of your kids, what are your goals? What are your future? Who do you want to be when you grow up? And every now and then check in by asking a simple question. Where are you supposed to be? The bell is ringing, and I came to ring your bell and ask you the question, Father, where are you supposed to be? And ask that question to your children. Where are you supposed to be? And don't you quit until you're number one.
Exodus chapter 3, beginning at verse number 7. Exodus chapter 3, beginning at verse number 7. Your Bible should read something similar to this. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their oppressors, and I know about their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians. There is hope. Amen. So we continue this series on being healed internally from the hurts, habits, and hang-ups of our past. This third week subject is There is Hope. We're looking at a passage that we looked at not too long ago, but coming at it from a different angle. It's actually part of our last series. As we go forward, we talked about last week that we have to face reality. And reality is we don't have it all together. That our lives are not perfect. All of us have some issues. Our pasts haunt us. And until we admit it, we will never make the changes we need to make in order for things to be different for us. Talked about the fact that we make bad choices, that we want things and people that are no good for us. We hold on to some things too long and let go of other things too quickly. And sometimes we can help everybody else while our own lives are falling apart. Thirdly, we talk about how we want to be in control of our lives. We don't want anyone telling us what to do, but at the same time, we sure wish everybody else did what we told them to do. Right. And so in reality, we want to be God. And because we don't have it all together, and because we make bad choices, though we want to be in control, we are not fit to be in control of our lives. We are not God and cannot be God. That's the bad news. The good news is there is somebody who is able to help you. Yeah. Amen. That's what we need when we don't have the power, the ability, the strength to do the things that we need. We need someone who is able to help us. Depending on where you are watching from, you probably know what it is to be stuck in some snow. Amen. Stuck in the snow is easy to get in, but it's hard to get out of it. Amen. You can get stuck in the snow by yourself with no help from anyone else. But when you really get stuck, you need somebody to help you get out. Amen. You need somebody who can steer and knows when to give it gas and knows when to brake. And then you need somebody or somebodies who know how to dig and how to push. Amen. Now, some of us, like myself, we've gotten good enough to know how to rock the car, amen, all by yourself. But rocking the car is rough on your transmission. So you may get out of snow today, but if it happens too often, you'll have a bigger problem down the road. When you get stuck, you need someone who is able and has the power to get you out. That's what is going on in the time of our text. For our text is taken out of a time of despair and frustration in the life of the children of Israel. Israel, as a growing nation, was in slavery and in captivity. Their masters, the Egyptians, have used them as servants and as toys. They have pushed them around and violated their human rights. And Israel cries unto the Lord. The Lord heard their cry, and in response to their cry, God went some 90 miles down from where Israel was and appeared to a man named Moses in the form of a burning bush on the backside of a desert. God calls his servant Moses to lead the children of Israel out of slavery. But Moses is one of the children of Israel. But he was raised as an Egyptian prince. And after learning his true heritage, one day he sees some of his people being abused by an Egyptian, and Moses kills the Egyptian and buries him in the sand. He thinks no one knows about his homicide, but he soon finds out that it's going through the grapevine. So Moses leaves town and ends up in a place called Midian. In Midian, Moses starts a whole new life. He's no longer a prince. He gets a job. He gets married. He has some kids. And one day on the back of a mountain, he sees a bush on fire. Amen. The bush is on fire, but the bush is not burning up. It's strange enough to see a bush on fire and you're the only person around. But where there is fire, there's usually smoke. But this time there's no smoke. The bush isn't turning black because it's being consumed. It stays green. So Moses decides to get closer to get a look. But as he gets closer, God speaks to him from the bush and tells him to take his shoes off because he's standing on holy ground. And then God speaks to Moses the words of our text. He says, I have observed the misery of my people in Egypt. I've heard them crying out because of their oppressors, and I know their sufferings. I have come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians. Now, before we can go anywhere, we have to recognize that there is a God. Amen. Some people try to deny the existence of God, and they point to evil in the world and bad things happening to innocent and good people as proof that God does not exist. But I came to tell you that bad and evil is not proof that God does not exist. Evil and bad proves that there is an absence of God in the hearts of some people. That evil and bad, amen, does not exist because there is no God. Evil and bad exist because people have chosen not to let God rule in their hearts. Some people will point to evolution and say, amen, because of evolution there is no God. But no one has ever seen evolution. Amen. If we came from monkeys or from apes, the question is, why are there still monkeys and apes? Why did they not evolve with us? Amen. Some people talk about a big bang. Well, what banged together, and who made the stuff that banged, and who banged the stuff that banged? Amen. You got all the answers. I still got some more questions, but we know that there is a God. God is love, and when you don't have God, you don't have love. God made the plants and the animals. He made the lions and the tigers and the bears. He made the birds and the bees and the butterflies. He made the monkeys and the apes, and he made mankind. In the beginning, God spoke, and bang, everything happened. I can't explain all the whys and the hows, but I came to tell you there is a God. I don't know his flavor, but I can taste and see that he is good. I can't sense his aroma, but my praise and worship is a sweet smelling savor to him. I can't see him, but his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I can't grab him with my hand, but one day he touched my heart and changed my life, and I can feel him down on the inside. I've never heard his voice with my ears, but he hears and answers my prayers. There is a God. There's a God. Amen. And God sees your suffering. Verse 7 says, I have observed the misery of my people. God saw his people. And if you are a child of God today, no matter what you're facing, God knows about it. He knew where his children were. Even if you wanted to, you can't hide from God. David put it this way in Psalm 139, "O Lord, you have examined my heart, and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or when I stand up. You know my thoughts even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel and when I rest at home. You know everything that I do. You know what I'm going to say even before I say it, Lord. You go before me and follow me. You place your hand of blessing upon my head. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too great for me to understand it. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up into heaven, you are there. If I go down to the grave, you are there." I came to tell you, God, amen, he sees you. He sees the heartache. He sees the tears. He sees the burdens, the ills and fears. He sees the grief, the worry and despair. He loves his own and longs for every care. No matter where you are, no matter what you are facing, God sees your struggle and he knows what you're going through. Not only does he see your struggle, but he hears your cry. Verse 7 says, "I have heard them crying out because of their oppressors." Amen. Sometimes we think God doesn't hear us because he takes too long or really longer than we want to wait. But just because God doesn't move when we want him to doesn't mean that he doesn't hear us. Amen. Even right now, some of the things that we and our ancestors have prayed for are being answered because God hears, but he acts on his own time. We can only imagine what it was like for our ancestors to be a slave, amen, praying for freedom, but free-ish, amen, finally came. We can only imagine what it was for the Israelites to be a slave, to work under unbearable conditions. Their sons were born to die, amen, at the king's command. All of these issues going on for hundreds of years. They were probably discouraged. They probably wondered, what is the use in crying out to God if he does not hear our prayer? Yeah. There was a little boy who was kneeling down to say his bedtime prayers. He said, "Lord, bless mommy and daddy. Bless grandma and grandpa. Bless auntie and uncle. Thank you for a good day today. And please give me a bike for Christmas." His mother heard him yelling, wondered why he was doing all that yelling. She said, "Son, you don't have to scream. God can hear you." And the boy looked at his mother and said, "I know God can hear me, amen, but grandma can't hear too good, and she's got the money for the bike." God knew what his children were facing. God heard their cries. God knew every tear that was shed. It does not matter how difficult your situation is. I came to tell you, God hears your cries. And so the question is, do you cry out to him? And sometimes we think God doesn't hear us because he takes too long. But somebody said, amen, he may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. What's on time? It's on time. Abraham waited 100 years for Isaac, but it was on time. Israel was in slavery for 400 years, but it was on time. The woman with the issue of blood was sick for 12 years, but it was on time. Lazarus was dead for 4 days, but it was on time. Jesus didn't come out the grave for 3 days, but he was on time. He may not come when you want him, but he's always on time. God sees your affliction. God hears your cries. And finally, amen, God knows your sorrow. Verse 7 says,
for I know their sorrows. God knew about every stripe of every whipping each. God knew about every pain at the end of every day. God knew about all their sorrows. God knows all about it. God knows what you're struggling with. He knows, amen, what you're going through. He knows the injustice. He knows the racism. He knows all about it. God knows, and he hears, and he sees, and he's going to come. Isaiah 57:15 says, for the high and exalted one who lives forever, whose name is holy, says this, I live in a high and holy place, and with the oppressed and the lowly of spirit, to revive the spirit of the lonely and revive the heart of the oppressed. That's what he says. Jesus came as a man of sorrows. He knows what you're going through. He understands what it's like to be mistreated. He knows what it's like to be lied on. He knows what it's like to be betrayed by a friend. He knows what it's like to have people say all manner of evil against you. Amen. Jesus knows that other people may try to comfort and calm and console you, but when you find yourself by yourself, that's when you got to turn to the one who is always there, and his name is Jesus. At the Greater Hope Church in Buffalo, New York, where my father serves as the pastor. That's the church that I grew up in. We had an old deacon by the name of Rufus Brantley. Deacon Brantley, amen, would get up and lead us in an old hymn. He'd say, I must tell Jesus all of my trials. I cannot bear these burdens alone. In my distress, he kindly will help me. He ever loves and cares for his own. I must tell Jesus all of my troubles. He is a kind and compassionate friend. If I but ask him, he will deliver. Make all my troubles quickly end. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, I cannot bear these burdens alone. I must tell Jesus, I must tell Jesus, Jesus can help me, Jesus alone. I came to tell you, God is there, and he does care. Exodus 3:8 says, I'm come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land unto a large land, a land flowing with milk and honey. In verse 8, God moved from compassion and it turns into action. He will deliver. Do I have a witness? Just like Jesus, he came down to set us free from the bondage of sin. I don't know what you're facing today, but God knows. I don't know what's holding you back, but God knows. I don't know what obstacles have been placed in your way, but God knows. I don't know what in your past is affecting your future, but God knows. I don't know how many times you've been hurt, let down, misused, and abused, taken advantage of, taken for granted, and taken as a fool. But God knows the one thing I do know, that there is some hope today. There is a God who sits high, but he looks low. There is a God who's on the throne, and he's able to deliver. Do I have a witness? Somebody who don't mind testifying. testify that the God I serve, he's able to deliver you. That's my hope. That's my hope today. The odds may be stacked against me, but my hope is in Jesus. The songwriter said, my hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name, on Christ, the solid rock I stand. All other ground is sinking sand. I got hope, yes sir, I got hope in the one who's able to do exceedingly and abundantly above all I can ask or think. I got hope in the one that is able to present me faultless before his majesty with great joy. I got hope in the healer, hope in the deliverer, hope in the way maker, hope in the strong tower, hope in the bridge over troubled water, hope in the wheel, in the middle of a wheel, hope in the one who's a battle axe in the time of the battle. Whatever you need, my God's got it. Whatever you need, he's able to supply. He's a deliverer. Yes, he is. He's a strong tower. Yes, he is. He's a protector. Yes, he is. He is a company keeper. Yes, he is. A heart fixer and a mind regulator. That's what my God is. He's everything that you need. I came to tell you, don't give up hope. Hang on just a little while longer. Hold on. See what the end is gonna be. Please don't give up. God will take care of you. Do I have a witness? Somebody who don't mind telling somebody God will take care of you. Be not dismayed, whatever betide, God will, yes he will, I know he will. How do I know? I tried him, I found out for myself. I used to have to rely on somebody else's testimony. I used to have to stand on what the Bible said. I used to have to stand on what my mama and my daddy said. But I've been around long enough to see him do some stuff in my own life. I've seen him work in my own heart. I've seen him work on my own mind. I've seen him move some people and some things out the way. I've seen him change other people's hearts and minds. I've seen him do things I thought were impossible. He will, yes he will. He will take care of you. I got hope. I got hope. I got hope in Jesus. I got hope. Why do I have hope? Why do I have hope? Why do I have hope? I got hope because one day when I was lost, he died on that cross. And I know it was the blood for me. He died on a hill called Calvary. But that's not how the story ends. Right early Sunday morning, my hope got up with all power in his hand. Power you walk right. Power to make you walk right. Power to heal. Power to deliver. Power to set free. That's what he did in my life. I was on my way to a devil's hell. Not fit to live. Sure was ready to die. But Jesus washed me whiter, 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 whiter than snow. I got hope today. I got hope today. And you need to have some hope. I know it looks dark. I know it looks bad. I know it looks dismal. I know what everybody else is saying. I know what everybody thinks. I know they're whispering behind your back. But I came to tell you, hold on. Hold on. Hold on. God will take care of you. There's hope. I know you've been stuck in this cycle for a long time. I know you've been trying to figure out your way out. Too often we give up too soon. Somebody said the darkest hour is just before day. Just hold on and trust God. God will.